Right, so I seen this yesterday, and I thought I'd just have to make a video about it because it's so scary and crazy and insane, just all in one. And this is a tweet from Spencer Fernando, and he says, in Justin Trudeau's Canada, we're supposed to be afraid of construction workers, but feel totally fine with terrorists walking around freely because it's 2019, and it went pretty viral considering I don't think he has a huge following. I mean, 731 retweets, and I don't know, I'm not going to X out of it to see how many followers he has, but he doesn't have a ton of followers. I think his typical tweet's like 100 retweets or so. Um, but this is the state of Canada nowadays, that Justin Trudeau has said that he's criticized construction workers for being like, it's like the typical, like, you're sexist, you're sexist, like, the stereotypical construction worker, like the negative stereotype, and that they were pretty heavily critical of them, and they were talking about how they need to reform and become more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, feminist. Um, but there was another terrorist on top of the, I don't know, I mean, there's been a handful of them that this guy was talking about blowing up a dam, I believe, and he had a court hearing, and they let him out with some conditions, but obviously, what are the chances of someone like that following those conditions? So they let him out, and that's kind of the state that we live in nowadays. That we need to be. You have Ilhan Omar saying that the biggest threat to the biggest threat to the country is white men, and we need to be really concerned about white men. But we don't need to be concerned about terrorists or people from countries. I mean, even people from countries where terrorism is super high, or people from countries where the crime rate is way higher, or people from countries that the leaders claim to hate the U.S. Again, like, it makes no sense that if you hate the country so much, then why do you want all your people to come there? Like, it doesn't really make any sense to me. If the U.S. or Canada is this horribly racist country that's just designed for white men to succeed, then why does literally, like, the overwhelming majority of the third world want to come to the West? Like, either they're so incompetent that they're literally walking into their own demise, or it's not this horrible, racist, patriarchal place that the left makes it out to be. And I think we all know that it's the second one. So, all in all, I mean, Justin Trudeau's kind of the epitome of a woke social justice warrior leader nowadays. I mean, I'm sure some of the ones in Europe are competing with him, but he's pretty well gone off the deep end, and it's disappointing because the Conservatives in Canada are pretty milquetoast. Milquetoast fence sitter is a good way of putting them, in that if they had a decent platform, like true conservative good platforms, then they would absolutely dominate this election. Like, Justin Trudeau's incredibly unpopular. He's been getting booed out of events in areas where the Liberals typically dominate. Like, imagine, the Democrats going and doing a rally in California or New York and getting booed out of the area. Like, that's basically the equivalent. And Justin Trudeau's going to get, I mean, the only thing propping him up is the fact that they paid off the mainstream media, and given that they paid off the mainstream media is going to run cover for them. So they are still going to get a good amount of votes. But if it wasn't for the mainstream media running cover for them, they would get absolutely destroyed. Like, their seats would be cut in half or less. And the other problem being is that the Conservatives are such milquetoast, vanilla, boring, vanilla fence sitters that a lot of people that typically would vote for them are looking at them and being like, well, you guys aren't even really much different than the Liberals, so I'm either not going to vote, or maybe I might vote for the Liberals. And that's given way to the PPC having such, I mean, it's not insane popularity, but considering they're a party that's not even a year old, the amount of popularity the PPC has is pretty astounding. And I mean, that's who I would suggest to vote for or not vote. I'm someone who kind of believes in lesser of two evils to an extent. That's kind of my opinion. I think it's a pretty good opinion because, if you're having to choose between someone who, they've stole a candy bar in their life and a murderer, then yeah, that's a pretty good lesser of two evils. There's a pretty big difference there. But if you have to choose between someone who's, a rapist and a murderer, there isn't really much of a difference. I mean, technically murdering is worse, but there isn't much of a difference. And that's kind of the difference between the conservatives and the liberals in Canada. As you have the conservatives who are the rapists and the liberals who are the murderers. Yeah, the conservatives are slightly better, but it's such a small difference that it's barely even measurable, and they're not gonna bring change. What's gonna happen is they're gonna get in, they're not gonna do a whole heck of a lot, and maybe if we're lucky, that'll bring way to either the PPC gaining even more popularity or them realizing that if they want to get voted back in, they're gonna have to take a stand. Or my prediction being is that they're not going to do a whole heck of a lot. The Liberals or the NDP will gain a lot of popularity and they'll win the next election. And they'll raise immigration up a whole lot more again, even on top of the already jacked up immigration levels. And no party to the right will ever get voted back in again. And that's kind of what the Conservatives are doing, is that they kind of recognize this, either consciously or unconsciously, that with immigration so high in Canada, the chances of a right-leaning party ever getting back in are going down more and more by the year. For every, every thousands and thousands of mass immigrants that we bring in from the third world, it's lowering the chances. And and the other problem too is that a lot of the people on the left, especially the far left, they're going to think of you the same no matter what your positions are. You could literally say that we're running the same exact platform as the Liberals, and as long as you keep that conservative next to your name, the people on the left are still going to think that you're the same as any other conservative. You're the same as Stephen Harper. You're the same as Donald Trump. They're going to think of you the exact same way, that you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a sexist, all that kind of stuff. So trying to pander to those people does not do anything. They're going to think of you the same no matter whether you're actually a racist or a Nazi, or if you literally come out and say, on every social media platform you have, that you agree with the Liberals on everything. So to me, it shows a lot of naivete on their part, that they actually think that this is going to work. I mean, technically it is going to work. They're going to get elected, but it's not going to work long term, because immigration is going to stay super high. 10, 20, 30 years down the road, the only way that the right-leaning parties are going to be considered, they would be able to run as liberal parties, as recently as before Justin Trudeau, basically. So that's kind of the state of Canada. Like you said, that, construction workers are scary and, we need to be scared of them, but, terrorists, that's completely fine. You're a racist if you don't want terrorists walking around in society. So yeah, it's getting pretty crazy out there, and people need to start speaking up, because I know for a fact that there's a lot of people who disagree with this BS that's going on in society that are staying silent, and you really need to speak up if you want change, because if you don't speak up, change isn't going to come. So if you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.